I am 64 years old, and I just realized I raised a stranger. His name is Michael. He's 32 now, lives about 20 minutes from here. And until 3 months ago, I thought I knew him. I thought I was a good father. I thought providing for him, paying for his college, helping him with his first house down payment, being there for the big moments, I thought that was enough. I was wrong about everything. You know what's funny? Everyone told me I was doing it right. Work hard, provide, be responsible, set a good example, show up when it matters. That's what fathers do, right? That's what my father did. That's what his father did. We call it being a man, but here's what nobody tells you about being a provider. While you're busy providing, you stop being present. While you're building their future, you miss their present. And one day you wake up and realize you raised someone you don't actually know. 3 months ago, I went to my doctor for a routine checkup. Routine, that's what I called it. Just getting older, just taking care of business. The way I handled everything. Practical, scheduled, efficient. The blood test came back wrong. PSA levels too high. More tests, more waiting. More of that horrible sterile silence that fills doctors' offices when news isn't good. Prostate cancer, stage 2, treatable they said, caught early they said, caught early, lucky they said. Lucky, I sat in that parking garage afterwards, engine running, phone in my hand. I needed to call someone. I needed to tell someone. And you know who I called first? My business partner, then my insurance company, then my lawyer. My son was fourth on the list. That should have told me everything right there. But I didn't see it yet. Michael came over that evening, sat in the same chair he always sits in when he visits, the one by the window. He looked concerned, the way you're supposed to look when your father tells you he has cancer. He asked the right questions, treatment options, timeline, prognosis. But as I was talking to him, really looking at him for maybe the first time in years, I realized something that made my stomach drop worse than any cancer diagnosis could. I didn't know him. I knew his job title. I knew he was an engineer, like me. I knew he made good money. I knew he bought that house in the suburbs. I knew he was dating someone named Sarah for about a year now. But I didn't know what made him laugh. I didn't know what kept him awake at night. I didn't know his fears, his dreams, his actual thoughts about anything that mattered. I had spent 32 years providing for this person, and I realized I had no idea who this person actually was. When did this happen? When did I stop asking him how he felt and start asking him how work was going? When did our conversations become status reports instead of conversations? I remember when he was 7, maybe 8, he would come into my office while I was working and just start talking about everything. His day at school, some kid named Tommy, a bug he found, a thought he had about why clouds move. I used to listen. I remember listening, but somewhere along the way I started saying things like, "Not now, buddy, Daddy's working," or "Can you tell me at dinner?" Or the worst one, "That's nice, son. That's nice, son." The phrase that ends conversations before they start. You know what happens when a kid stops getting real responses? They stop asking real questions. They stop sharing real thoughts. They learn to give you the information you actually want. School is fine. Practice was good. Everything's okay, Dad. By the time he was 15, our conversations were purely transactional. Do you need money for the trip? How are your grades? Did you get the college application done? I thought that was normal. I thought that was how teenage boys talk to their fathers. I thought we were good, but we weren't good. We were strangers living in the same house. And after he moved out, after college, after he got his job and his apartment, and eventually his house, our relationship became even more surface level. Holidays, birthdays, occasional dinners, small talk about weather, work and gas prices. I never asked him what he thought about when he was alone. I never asked him what he wanted from life beyond career advancement. I never asked him if he was happy. I never asked him if he missed me the way I was starting to realize I missed him. See, here's what I'm learning now. Maybe too late. Children don't need perfect fathers. They need present fathers. They need fathers who see them as complete human beings, not just projects to be managed or problems to be solved. I managed Michael like I managed everything else in my life. Set clear expectations, provide necessary resources, monitor progress, adjust as needed. But he wasn't a business plan. He was a person with an inner world I never bothered to explore. After that night when I told him about the cancer, I started paying attention differently. When he called to check on me, instead of just updating him on my medical status, I started asking him questions, real questions. How was he really doing with his job? Not just was he getting promoted, but did he actually like what he did every day? What did he think about when he drove to work in the morning? And you know what I discovered? My son, this stranger I raised, is actually interesting. He thinks about things deeply. He has opinions about books I've never read, movies I've never watched, ideas I've never considered. He told me he's been learning to play guitar for 2 years. 2 years. How did I not know that? He told me he's thinking about proposing to Sarah, but he's scared because he doesn't want to end up in a marriage like the one he watched growing up. That hit me harder than the cancer diagnosis. He was scared to end up like me, like us, like the marriage where his mother and I lived together but rarely talked about anything deeper than schedules and household maintenance. We provided stability. We provided consistency. We provided everything except emotional connection. The thing about cancer is it makes time feel different. Suddenly, later becomes maybe never. Someday becomes probably not. Tomorrow becomes precious. I started asking Michael to have lunch with me more often, not to talk about my treatment, but just to talk, to catch up on 30 years of not really knowing each other. And what I'm learning is heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. He's kind, really kind, not just polite, but genuinely caring about people in ways I never taught him, in ways I'm not sure I ever modeled. He's funny. He has this dry sense of humor that catches you off guard. Where did he get that? Not from me. I was always too serious, too focused on the next task. He's thoughtful. He thinks about big questions, the meaning of work, the purpose of life, what it means to be a good person. These are conversations I should have been having with him for decades. But maybe the most painful discovery is that he's lonely. Despite having everything I thought I was giving him the foundation for, a good job, financial security, a nice life, he's lonely because I taught him to be independent. I taught him to be self-sufficient. I taught him to figure things out on his own. But I never taught him to let people in. I never taught him to be vulnerable. I never taught him to build real connections, because I never learned those things myself. Here's what I wish someone had told me when Michael was young, what I wish I had understood before I spent 30 years getting it wrong. Your children don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be curious about them. They need you to see them as individuals, not extensions of yourself or reflections of your success. They need you to ask them what they think, not just what they did. They need you to care about their inner world, not just their achievements. They need you to be interested in who they are, not just proud of what they accomplish. Love isn't just providing. Love isn't just showing up for big moments. Love is paying attention to the small moments. Love is asking follow-up questions. Love is caring about the things they care about, even if you don't understand them. I spent so much time building a life for Michael that I forgot to build a relationship with Michael. And now, with this diagnosis hanging over everything, I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to learn who this person is that I raised, but never really knew. Some days it feels possible. Some days we have conversations that feel real, that feel like we're actually connecting across all these years of distance. But some days it feels too late. Some days I can see in his eyes that he learned to protect himself from my disinterest a long time ago, and those walls aren't easy to take down. There's this moment that haunts me. Last week we were having coffee, and I asked him about Sarah, about their relationship. He started to tell me something real, something that mattered to him. But halfway through he stopped. He caught himself. I could see it happen. He remembered who he was talking to. The father who always had solutions instead of ears. The father who always had advice instead of empathy. He switched gears. Started talking about surface things again. Safe things. Things that wouldn't require him to be vulnerable with someone who had never made space for his vulnerability before. I wanted to say, no, keep going. Tell me the real thing. I'm listening now. But how do you convince someone to trust you when you've spent decades proving you can't be trusted with their inner world? You know what I regret most? It's not the big moments I missed. I made it to his graduations. I made it to his games. I made it to the important events. What I regret are all the small moments I dismissed. All the times he tried to tell me something, and I was half listening, half thinking about work. All the times he had a question about life, about relationships, about what it means to be a man, and I gave him a quick answer instead of a real conversation. I regret every time I said, figure it out, when what he needed was guidance. I regret every time I said, you'll understand when you're older, when what he needed was understanding right then. Most of all, I regret that I taught him to be like me, self-reliant to a fault. Emotionally distant, uncomfortable with feelings, good at doing, terrible at being. The hardest part isn't the cancer. The hardest part is realizing that I had 32 years to know my son, and I spent most of them thinking I already did. But here's what really keeps me awake at night. It's not just that I don't know him, it's that he learned not to need me to know him. He learned to get emotional support from friends, from Sarah, from anyone except his father, because his father was busy. His father was practical. His father was always focused on the next thing instead of the person right in front of him. I created exactly what I thought I wanted, an independent, successful, responsible young man. But in the process, I gave up the relationship. I gave up knowing him. I gave up him knowing me. Time doesn't wait for you to figure out what matters. Time doesn't pause while you're busy with other things. Time doesn't give you a warning that you're about to run out of opportunities to get to know the people you love most. If you have children, if you have people in your life who matter to you, don't assume you'll have time later to really know them. Don't assume that providing for them is the same as connecting with them. Ask them questions, real questions. Listen to the answers. Be curious about their thoughts, their dreams, their fears. Be interested in who they are, not just what they do. Don't wait for a diagnosis to realize that time isn't unlimited. Don't wait for a crisis to start paying attention to what actually matters. I'm 64 years old, and I'm just now learning who my son really is. Don't wait as long as I did. If this stayed with you, maybe it needed to.